Hi everyone, welcome back to Candid Talk. I'm your host Mahi. This is the show where we look at the invisible behind the visible and we look into the unknown journeys of some of the most incredibly successful people in the field of education. And I am joined by a woman just like that today. Today my guest is a woman who's had over 30 years of experience in the field of education, almost 40 by the way, which is really cool. She is also a UN accredited climate change leader, a lot of things for me to remember. If you're in her stomping grounds, you will always be greeted by her smile, her poise, her grace, just her elegance, And she's had a long and exciting career. Everyone loves her, everyone respects her, and I'm really, really excited to welcome the principal of GEMS Legacy School, the multifaceted Miss Asha Alexander.
What a lovely introduction. Thank you so much, Mahi. Thank you for that. It's exciting to be here, and I'm waiting for your questions.
So, how are you feeling today? You just came from school.
Yes, it's the end of the week. Lots of things, and work never ends in a sense, but you're always anticipating something. So that's what makes school life exciting, because besides the academics, there's so much going on for which you need to prepare. And though you're not actively engaged, your mind's working. You're thinking about all the stuff that has to happen the following week. So yes, it's the end of the week. Looking forward to some relaxed time, but at the same time thinking about what the next week holds.
So summer break just got over, and I've been asking everyone this because they're just like recovering from summer break.
Yeah.
So how long was your summer break?
The break is for 2 months almost, but as administrators, we get like 30 days of leave, which is like working days. So it works out to around 40 days across the school year. So yes, most of us, since everyone goes on break at that time, it's unless there's some summer camp or something else happening, there's nothing that requires our presence. So everyone actually takes off during the summer breaks.
So what's the most exciting thing you've done over the summer break?
I did something very exciting. I did deep sea diving in the sense snorkeling. I went with my daughter to Bali, and it was just something that we wanted to try, and it was pretty exciting.
How is it? Did you feel like nervous? Because you went like not so deep, but you were still
It was in
underwater.
really, really a deep sea. Actually, they took us right out, and we swam with the manta ray. It's a huge ray, which is it's a huge span, and so you actually get to swim with them. And we were lucky that we saw the manta ray, because it's not always that they can predict that they're going to see the ray. But fortunately, when we went, we did get to see the ray.
So would you ever go snorkeling again, or was this just like a one-time thing?
No, I've done snorkeling, but at shallow waters in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. But that was perhaps something very different compared to the deep sea one, because here you have to really be careful, because the waves can just carry you to the cliffs and things like that. So you have to be careful. So it was a little frightening, but exciting all the same. Yes, I enjoyed it.
Wow. So what do you like to do in your downtime? What is something that you enjoy doing? You don't get to talk about it much, but you're just like, this is my thing and I love doing it.
I love lots of things. I love life. So anything that's exciting. I've done many, many things like in adventure sports. I've done skydiving here in Dubai.
Wow.
I have gone on the zip line. I've done paragliding. So I choose to do a lot of adventure sports. But besides that, I also love painting and drawing. So that's another side which is very different. I read, I like to learn, and over the years I read different things, and now I'm very much into strength training. I trained for the last 3.5 years. I have a personal trainer, so every morning I go for strength training, which is like 4 times a week, and then the other 3 days I do cardio. So it's 4:30 up for me, and 5 to 6:30 I'm at the gym, and then I come back and get ready for school. So it's a very energizing start to the day, and I didn't think I'd enjoy it, but now I really love going to the gym and actually lifting weights and becoming stronger. So that's something I really want even my children in my school to benefit from. Yeah.
Wow. A lot of times people say when they exercise, it affects them mentally as well in a positive way. You think it has affected you in a good way mentally?
In a lot of ways. When I'm completely engaged in something, then nothing distracts me. Like when I'm painting or when I'm reading, I'm oblivious to what's happening around me. It's a similar kind of experience at the gym, because that's the only time I'm not checking my phone or my watch or constantly, looking for messages. It's the phone has actually altered a lot of things for all of us, because you're constantly looking for mails which come from school, or there's a ping and you're looking, okay, who's answering, who's calling me or who's sending me a message. But when you do something and you're totally not distracted, there's nothing I think about but training in the gym. So that's exciting for me, because it's that kind of, it kind of sets the tone for the day. You get a kind of a mental peace, and you're really exhausted in a sense when you finish, but it sort of energizes you again when you are so I think it's quite therapeutic for me.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your personal style. So over the years, it's easy for people to identify you, because they always say, oh, you haven't changed one bit. I think something that stands out the most for you is your hair. I love the bob cut. It looks so good, so fashionable. So, oh my God, I want to know, growing up, who were some of your fashion inspirations, if you had any, and what's your personal style like now, even like with the hair?
You'd be crazy to say that this is a style. When I was young, I had long hair, and by long I mean not just ordinary long. I had hair till my knees. Okay, because I learned Bharatanatyam as a dance form, and my dad was very keen that I become a dancer. So there was no option. I think I was born with this hair, and then it just grew and grew and grew. And I kept dancing, say, from age around 3 till around 14. And then I reached the board exam times, and then I found I didn't have time. So it was like an ultimatum to dad that it's either dance or my results. And then my mom was like, let her study. It's so time consuming. He relented in a very unhappy manner. But the first thing, I think, being a teenager, the first thing I did was a kind of a rebellious act, was to cut off my hair. I just went to the parlor, and it was my way of saying, no, I'm done with dancing.
Freedom.
And I don't want long hair, because long hair meant, in oiling it and washing it, and you have to walk around for hours drying your hair. And because it was so long, my mom used to plait my hair and put it over the head stead, of the bed, so that I don't sleep on the on the hair. And the next morning I don't have to sort of comb it all out again. So it was a lot of additional work as a young child to have to manage such long hair. It actually spilled over into when I had my own kids and I had my daughter. I kept her hair so short, because it was a kind of, no, I'm not going to let my kids suffer with this. But the funny thing is, she wanted to grow her hair. And so when she was a little older, she said, no, I don't like this. I want to grow my hair. And I always felt that that was difficult as a child. And so it was not out of any fashion statement or because I followed anybody, but I decided I just need to get rid of my hair.
One less thing to
Yes, one less thing to worry about. But on hindsight, much later I realized that I have a skill set in dancing, which I didn't appreciate at that time. But now that I'm much older, I just wish I had continued, because I had done my Arangetram, which means you can give public performances. I didn't use it after that. It was a sort of a rebellious attitude of a teenager that I'm done with this. I'm now going to be like other people. And I just gave up on dancing. And I really feel bad now that I didn't continue, because I think lots of, your own style of walking and sitting and moving comes, the grace that you carry yourself with is much more if you've actually been a dancer. it sort of flows into who you are, how you hold yourself, and how you walk and carry yourself. And I think that I liked all things that were artistic. I liked painting. I liked, embroidery. I liked several things that were artistic. But at that time, it was more because I was being asked to devote like 3-4 hours for practice. Every day the master would reach before I did from school. So when I used to see his little moped down below, I would think, oh God, that's 2 or 3 hours continuously. But now when I go to the gym, I think I was well exercised as a kid. So maybe it's a muscle memory now. It's a different kind of exertion, but I'm able to do it because for 10, 11 years as a child, I was practicing for 2-3 hours a day. Yeah, but I don't think, when I look at parents today, they do take their kids and want things for them. They send them to play basketball and other things, games and dances. But my dad used to sit there those 3 hours while I learned dance. He was physically present there. And I think he wanted it more than I did. And I was very keen to please him as a young child. But as I grew older, I realized it's a huge investment in time to do this, And I think it was just not able to find the balance between studying and wanting to do well in your studies, as well as having to do something where you were actually good at. And the sad part on hindsight is 12, 13 years of rigorous practice. I had a skill level which was high. And just because I was just being unreasonable at that age, I just tossed it all out. And now if you have to start Bharatanatyam, I may pick up a dance form because I have rhythm, but you'll have to devote a lot of time to get back to where you were. And I'm sure I won't be as flexible and agile as I was when I was a kid.
I definitely wanted to ask you that, like, if you had to start doing it again, do you think you'd remember what you learned back in the day?
I remember quite a bit, like what they start with 𝐤𝐤𝐥𝐿 and all, which is the beginning things. I know it. It's something that you can't forget. But I was actually telling my daughter I want to learn Kathak. So then she said, at this age, you want to learn Kathak? I said, why not? So I said, it's because in South India, from where I am, it was basically Bharatanatyam. Most girls were trained either in Bharatanatyam, or if you could sing well, you became a classical, music. You would do one or the other. It was in most homes, most girls learned music or they learned to dance. And it was a sort of a given, and Bharatanatyam was the dance form. I think nobody questioned, everybody did it for a little while. Some people gave it up after a couple of years because they weren't interested. I was doing well and I didn't see any reason, and everyone was encouraging me. But I think it was more on a whim, like must have been mad with my dad or something and decided, well, that's the end of it. But now on hindsight, I think, I wish somebody had stopped me and told me that, you don't have to throw it all away. You can have, you may not be able to devote so much time, but it was an either or kind of thing, like, and there was nobody reasoning with me, and my dad didn't want me to stop dancing, but I just wasn't able to manage my studies and everything else along with this huge chunk of time that went every single day towards dancing. But now, as a much older adult, I know that you need to put in that kind of practice if you want that level of skill. Whether it's playing the piano or, playing cricket or football, you need to devote time, and it's what you devote time to that skills you up, So perhaps I was really in another level and I should have continued, but these are the follies of young youth and growing up that you really don't think. Many things I'm sure you do, you might have done differently if, you thought about it.
So when you had your daughter, do you think any of that I don't want to say regret. Okay, in a way, I guess you kind of missed doing, you thought maybe I should continue
No, I did.
dancing?
I put her in for dance, but she didn't quite like it. And
Yeah.
then I quickly sensed that, no, I don't want her to do things that she doesn't like. So I gave them the option. My son went to learn keyboard. And with my own children, it was more about you can discover what you want. I don't want to put you into any particular, pathway. Whereas with my dad, it was very clear that there were certain things he wanted us to do. In a sense, it gave a direction. I don't think I would have ever explored dancing if it weren't for him, or for that matter, painting. My dad used to draw very well, and I think right from when I won my first prize when I was 3 years old. I still remember the picture I drew because he made me do it over and over and over again till I got it just so. I remember getting, those paint boxes, camel paint, watercolors, little tablets with one brush. And I was so tiny that he had to lift me onto the stage. It was the kind of, what would I say, mentoring, because he saw possibly that I had an inclination to draw, but he honed that he knew that if I put in so much time with her, she will be able to reproduce this. And I did. And I think that was the beginning for my dad to know that I was very malleable. You could get me to do stuff. You just have to teach her to do it, and she would soak it up and she would do whatever it was. So I just went along, because when you got a prize, people applauded you. People say, "Oh, well done, you won a prize." So, but actually, I love anything to do with designing. I'm pretty okay on even with graphics on computers. It's all self-taught, but I do a lot of posters and things. Anything that is a little bit to do with color and line and form and aesthetics, I'm very inclined towards. So that's something I enjoy. But otherwise, also, I like to paint. I like to do sketches, but you won't get so much time as a principal to sit. Because when I put up one picture, I remember one of my senior leaders coming to my office and saying, "Asha, did you paint that?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I think we have to give you more work."
So I think it's so nice that you opened up, about your kind of relationship with your father and how, in a way, he's been special for you. So is there any special memory that you can remember with your dad that you cherish a lot?
I think many people shaped me, but I think my dad had a lot of ways in which I would attribute a lot of what I have as grit coming from my dad. He just wouldn't allow you to stop because you failed, like you had to continue. So it's not right to do, but when I was 16, I was driving a car in India because he said, "No, you've got to drive." And he didn't say, "You're a girl and you can't drive." So my mom would say she'd get into trouble, but he used to make us drive on the highways, like we'd drive from Bangalore to Kerala to native place, and he'd just get me behind the wheel and he would teaching me to drive. I was the only one who survived my dad's instruction, because both my sister and my mother said no way, and they enrolled themselves in a driving school and they learned driving the proper way. I learned with my dad because he whatever he asked me to do, I would try, but he was like a perfectionist. He would never be happy with any kind of result. I remember learning how to swim, and when I was swimming, he would say, I didn't learn swimming properly, so I'd have my head fully into the water and I wouldn't look up. And he'd say, "Just 2 more strokes and you're here. Just 2 more strokes." So he's standing outside and I was somewhere in the middle of the pool. But I trusted him that I was somewhere close to the edge, so I would keep at it. And then after several strokes and what seemed like eternity, I'd reach the end of the pool, and then I'd realize he was lying to me. But the fact is, he said, if I had told you, you have another 10 strokes, you would not have done it. So sometimes I keep pushing myself that way, that, just keep your head down and do the hard yard, and it has to finish, whatever it is, whether it is some difficult time in life or, some challenging thing that's come. once you've started it, it will come to a conclusion at some point. The thing I have learned from is you just got to hang in there. You got to continue what you've begun till it comes to its conclusion. So that's something that I have learned from him. And I would say that every time I have to learn a new skill or do something, it's like, it'll be hard, but you've got to give whatever you're learning sufficient time in order to say, I'd be able to do it or I won't be able to do it. So because he drew, every time I show him a picture, I used to sketch all these artists, these, actors. Those days, Amitabh Bachchan, and I show my dad and he said, no, his nose is not like this. His eyes are not like this. And I go back and I keep sketching. And I would say, okay, one day he'd say, this one is perfect. But it never comes. He'd always say, there's room for improvement. He says, if you, that's another kind of, in retrospect, I feel, we always want to master things and we want to say, now I know everything about it. But what I have learned is that if you've attained mastery, then your growth has stopped because there's nothing more for you to do. So as a principal, as a teacher, you have to be a continuous learner, because once you realize, once you want to attain that kind of mastery, you're saying, once I learn this, then that's it. I don't have anything more to learn. But if you believe that, no, I haven't yet reached there, there's more to learn, that becomes a way of life then. You're pretty good at it, but you'll never, ever know everything or reach the top of whatever it is that you want to achieve. And you shouldn't even try, because there's so much to learn. The world is changing, everything is changing. So when we say that I want to ace this out, I'll be the best at it, even that is very temporary, because I might get a recognition. It's just along your path, but you can't just stop there. You've got to continue. So where are you continuing? If you really believe you have mastered it, then there's no growth for you there. You need to look for something that will continue challenging you. So several things, because he was very invested in everything we did in our learning, and not only giving us academic learning, but I think life skills. So it's important that I drive, because he said it's necessary that you're independent, that you learn, that you hold a job. And for those days, I think he was very forward thinking. Yeah.
So what was your first job like?
My first job was also a joke, because actually my dad wanted me to become a doctor, and I was like, no, I don't think, I like so many things. I didn't want to sit down and devote 5 years to medicine or whatever. So again, he was disappointed, and he said, okay, you're doing your BA, your MA and stuff like that, and we get you married. Okay, fine, we get married. So I got married, and then I suddenly realized, oh God, I don't have any qualifications that can get me a job, So before I knew it, I was pregnant. I had 2 children, twins, and they kept me awake the whole night. The only good thing I made of that time was, and I'm thinking back, I had twins. And so when I see people laboring with one kid now, I get mad, because I'm like, I looked after 2 of them together. I also did my B.Ed. I did my MA in English. During the time, the children were like they were 1 and 2 years old. I was studying, I was appearing for exams, and even those exams, I remember my dad took me to write those. He would sit in the car while I went and gave the exam. My mother was looking after the twins in the house. It was that realization came a little late, that I hadn't got the qualifications I would need to get a job. But even then, I didn't know what job I wanted to do. And I was quite intent. When I was small, I would say, I'll never become a teacher. So never say never, because that's where it's going. So when I had these kids and I was staying, I realized that There's very little I can do in terms with twins. There's nobody to look after them except myself. So I said that maybe I should just try teaching, because, that seems to be an option where you can go and, you don't devote such a long time. So I just take the kids to drop them off to school at a bus stop. They're very tiny at that time, maybe 2, 3. Those days schools start 3. So somebody who was at the bus stop was a teacher, and she said, I think my principal will like you. Why don't you come and see? I said, I'm just doing my B.Ed. She said, no, she's very cool. She take newbies also. She wants to train people and stuff like that. It's a new school. So I said, oh, what harm can come? I used to drive, which was different then. So I took out my car and I found this place. I walked in, and she said, oh, okay, we have, and it was more like a house, which they'd convert a villa type of thing, where they converted it into a school. So it was a very new school to just begun. So I said, okay, I will join the school. And since she was ready to take me without my degree being completed, I said, okay, I'll give it a go. And the first kids that I taught, we had children who have special needs. I had no idea. He was autistic, the boy, and he liked drawing, and I loved drawing. So I took him under my wing to sort of, because he used to be very quiet. He was engaged when I was drawing, and everything I taught him, I used to draw pictures and try and make him learn. But I remember one day he got scared, because I think autistic children get very disturbed if you disturb the order. Something happened in class that day, and he got so frightened. He just hugged me and he just sunk his teeth into my shoulder. And it was the most excruciating pain, because till he became okay, he wasn't letting me go. But once he recovered, his mother was a helper teacher, and she was apologizing, and she said, no, Ashok is just disturbed. And she said, no, he didn't mean it. I said, I know he didn't mean it. But when I got home, my husband was like, I told you this is a disaster. Don't go teaching children, because those days, the salary was something like 1,000 rupees. Okay. So he said, you don't need to do this. I said, I'm not doing it for the money. I want to keep myself occupied. I want to do something. I want to use what I have learned. But when I got bitten, he was like, no, this is very dangerous and things like that. But, I always think, I don't know why I went back. I was like, I still have Ashok in my class. I still might have occasions where he's going to go berserk. But I was like, no, it's okay. I'll try and continue with this. So once I saw that year through, I found that, I was enjoying dealing with children at different levels. And I also had the opportunity to teach right from kindergarten. So, as a principal, I always tell my teachers, I've taught in every single class level there is, because my husband's job, he was in the Navy, so he used to leave one city and go to another city, and I would just follow him. And so some schools I got in grade 5 or 6, and some schools in 10 or 11, or wherever I found the job, I took it. So I didn't say, so now there are lots of teachers who say, no, I cannot teach little children, or I cannot teach, I can only teach older kids, or I like teaching this. Whatever they asked me to teach, I taught. Whether I had to teach geography, I had to teach history, I had to teach English, I taught art, I taught general knowledge. I've done a host of things, and I was also in kindergarten. But I basically enjoyed, being with children and teaching them. So, and it became an easier job for me as my own children went to school. It was, I could go with them, and only in one school they studied where I taught. Otherwise, they were in different schools. I was in a different school, and I think it worked out very well for them and for me that we were not in the same school. Yeah. But yeah, that was my first job was into teaching. And only because I think I got married at like 21 or something. And by the time I'm 22, I've got twins. You know, there's very little time those days. You know, now if I look at it, my daughter married at 28 or whatever, and they were very clear. They want to work, they want to hold a job, they will then decide. In my case, by the time I was 40, I think these children were 15, 16 years old. And now my children are turning 40, and, you know, like, okay, we don't even want kids, we'll think about it, that kind of thing, you know. So lots of things are changing, and they know what they want. In our cases, I think it was basically those days, if you got in for medicine or engineering, you held a kind of
high status.
No, you sort of took up that job maybe, and it was okay because it was considered a good job to hold. Teaching was considered respectful for ladies. I don't think they would have liked us to go for corporate jobs. You know, that was like a no. You need to be in one of these kind of respected professions. And it wasn't so much like you had to go and earn a lot of money or whatever. But I definitely wanted to do something with what I had learned and what I had studied. And I realized that whatever little I knew, I needed to make use of that knowledge, you know. So I think eventually teaching became a nice profession because I was interested in a lot of things. And I don't think if I became a doctor, I could have painted or debated or taken part in dramatics or, you know, I was inclined towards sports. Teaching allowed me to experience all of those things while I was working. You know?
So when you got your B.Ed, you said you didn't want to be a teacher, but you were getting a B.Ed. So what was
I
that?
just was doing like, let me study, you know. So study something. So okay, there was B.Ed, there was B.A. or M.A. So I gave my M.A. as a external student. I studied and I went and I wrote the exam. I bought all the books. I taught myself. So it wasn't with any intent. It was just that I was just trying to keep myself busy during that time and look after the children. And I think that was the best thing I did, because after that, I doubt once the children started growing up, there was literally no time with teaching the children. And I was also working and everything. It became very challenging. I don't think I could have studied. I also did my M.Ed during that time. I mean, as soon as I got my job and I knew I'm teaching, I did my M.Ed.
That was, wow. You have had a very stressful start to your career.
You know, I always think that in a way now today when I look at my children and things like that, I was very young. Even when I came here, I was around 40 when I came to Dubai. My children were grown up, you know. And when I look at my own children, and they don't have children, and they're still debating, they got married late, they want to hold on to their jobs. Raising children and managing everything was much more easier when I was 21 and 22 in terms of energy levels, staying awake and doing whatever I had. It was a tizzy of those 2-3 years, but I think I did it better than I would have if I were like, say, 35 or 38 and having to raise a child, you know. So the hard yards were behind me. My parents were younger. They were able to support to some extent. So all of that in terms of raising children and, you know, that bit was over. You know, if you won't have the same energy levels when you're 40.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so I came here at 40 and I was like, these children were much older. They were capable of doing their own thing. They were going into 11 and 12, I think. And I was free now to actually concentrate on my career, you know. And here, Dubai gave me the permanency I didn't get in India, because my husband was in the Navy. Every 2 years, we shifted locations. So even when I was good at something, I couldn't stay there because he would get a transfer to some other state and we would follow him. And that would mean I have to let go of the career.
That is sometimes upsetting.
Yes, but it taught me, if I look at it, I learned very quickly to climb. I knew how to do the right things in every school. So I would go in and the teachers would say, okay, you start as a teacher. Within months, they'd realize she's an exceptional teacher. Then they want to give you more responsibility. And I take it on. And I was able to do it so well that it's like climbing a ladder. Once you know how to climb, the going up would become far easier because you were forced to. And it also taught me both sides. That is, I was sometimes a teacher, sometimes an administrator. So the first tenure was as a teacher. The second was as a principal of a new school. So I was just 30 something and I was a principal of a new school. That school has become very big in Coimbatore. And then I went back from there. My husband shifted. I went back to being a teacher. Then I became a headmistress of a very large school. Then from there, I went back to being a teacher. So you were constantly going between being a teacher and then being on the other side. Every time I became a principal or a headmistress, I knew exactly the way teachers perceived leadership, what they expected from leaders. And when I was a teacher, I could see good examples of leadership. I could also see poor examples of leadership, and everything taught me. And I only think there are people who are leaders and teachers here who've served maybe under one or two principals because they've largely been with one organization. Because I had several schools across India, I had that experience. I could read people. I knew what good leadership was. I knew what poor leadership was. I knew what big schools, I had to manage. I knew how to manage a large number of staff. I was in rich schools, very premium schools like Cathedral and John Connon. I've also run like naval schools, which cater to everyone. So I had a lot of experience with which I came to Dubai, where I had already seen, when you don't see different styles of operation, different types of leadership, you believe this is how all bosses are, So if you have only worked with one boss or two people, your judgments are based on, oh, this one wasn't so nice, this guy is a good boss, and this is how I should be. I saw strengths of different kinds in different people. I saw a variety of people and teachers and children across all of India. So whether it was Delhi or Bombay or Visakhapatnam and Coimbatore, Kochi, I was in different cities, not of my choice. I learned, I was in government institutions, I was in private sector institutions. I could see the difference of the kind of instruction, the kind of resources available. There were commonalities, but I could also, because I was interacting with different types of people, read people better. It helps me to recruit better. It helps me to understand that everybody's capable of learning. And it armed me as a 40-year-old coming here to have already had that experience. So sometimes I think we curse. I cursed then, no doubt, that when I shifted there, why I have to give up my job? Why do I have to travel with you? Why can't I just stay in this place? Now I'm the principal here. But having to move taught me adaptability, taught me that, I was young enough to go back and forth. And it exposed me to a lot of leadership styles and people, which I either saw as a teacher or I was thrown into a position of leadership. But it was all learning, valuable learning, so that when I finally got in here and, struck roots with gems, I realized that, that if I didn't have that, I don't think I would be, I could have started off as solid as I did, because I had the experience. And that's very essential when you hire people, when you develop people to understand, because you've seen people from all walks of life. You've seen schools with very low income people and the kind of teachers who teach there, and regardless whether it was low income or a premium school, good teachers are key, and that always made the difference. Whether you taught in a school with little or no resources, or a school which is highly resourced, you needed great teachers. Yeah.
So you've kind of went on for a long time in your life. You've been doing a lot of things without kind of stopping in a way. That's how you spent like your 20s and your 30s. You just went from one thing to another, just without stopping and learning.
Okay. I still believe I want to continue doing that. I don't think of retirement. I do not like the idea of retiring. I don't think I can retire because my mind is so busy that it'll cook up something for me to do. And I'm not saying by means of like that I need to work in a 9-to-5 job, but I think I will just continue doing things. I can't, my mind is a very active mind. It's always ahead of what I want to do. So even when my teachers tell me it's holiday times are the most dangerous because ma'am will find something else for us to do. She'll think up something and she'll come to school and say, I've got this idea, let's do this. So it's something that I enjoy doing. I think essentially I'm a learner, and the best skill that my school has given me is to keep learning, to keep asking questions. So I think I would like to give that to all students. If you think I've learned it all, I've got it all, you can't become a good teacher. You can't become good at anything if you think you can operate on finite knowledge, especially now, So in our days, we didn't have the computer, we didn't have social media, we didn't have information was the teacher or some encyclopedia, so it's changed, but we've embraced it along the way. I taught myself how to type, how to use the computer, because I was in a school where the computer teacher, that's the first time I was seeing a computer. It was a desktop, and she said, watch carefully, I don't have time. I'm going to teach you how to operate this Word document. I was to type out a question paper. I had no idea, believe me, other than I could read the keys A, B, C, D, and she showed me how to space, etc. They told me we all type our own question papers. So I had written out all the questions. I made the question paper. I was told by my vice principal, go and type this. I said, I don't know how to use a computer. She said, go learn. So I sat back one day and she showed me once. I kept the document open, and you won't believe it, I must have spent at least 2-3 hours typing out my first question paper. When I had done it and I took the paper, I went to the vice principal. She said, oh, but I think we don't like this comprehension passage. It's not challenging enough. And I, for one, didn't know now how much longer I would take to do another comprehension passage. But I tell you, this is the grit that my father taught me. Like, don't stop. This question paper will be completed after some time. I went back. I took a newspaper cutting. I typed out everything on the newspaper cutting as a comprehension passage. I created my own questions based on that newspaper extract. I went back to her. Where did you get this? And I said, no, I made this myself. I've taken it. Eventually, after about 2-3 times of sending me back and forth with refining the questions, I managed to save the document and, make sure that. And once I had done that, it's just one day. It's just one day when I was taught how to operate, to typing out a question paper and handing it in. I was teaching grade 12. I said, fine. I went home, I told my husband, I'm buying a computer. Whatever for. I said, no, I need a computer. I think this is a skill set I don't have. He was like, no, you don't need, you can use your school's computer. I said, no, school's computer won't teach me. Believe me, I was so annoyed for not knowing what I felt I didn't have, that I taught myself everything over and beyond what everybody in that school knew. So I did a lot of research. So every time I taught, I would, Google, I would research the poet or the author. I would create worksheets, and I would do all kinds of things which none of the other teachers did. I did it with a vengeance because I wanted, this was shown as something that I lacked when I joined that school, saying that, no, they put me through the paces. Said, no, we won't accept this, we won't accept that. In a way, probably to see whether you have the staying power. And I think many jobs and many people do that. They try you to see how much you can take, like pushing people to see. And some people just crack under the, oh, I am no good at this, I can't do it, But once that one day taught me that, oh, this thing is not as bad as I thought, and I can learn. It's just that I have to have the instrument to practice on. And, it was very, very rudimentary those days. I'm talking 26, 27 years ago, when I had to come to Mumbai to actually see the laptop or the desktop. We didn't have anything. So for a good 10, 15 years of my career, I was the duster, chart paper, a teacher. And then I realized that, well, this is the way we have to change along with it. So I learned it, and I think that's what every human being should have when they leave any institution, is that they should continue to learn. Because it may not be the computer. Now today's AI. Children and adults in the field, they need to use ChatGPT or artificial intelligence. If you haven't learned it, you have to be able to learn it on your own. You have to be able to teach yourself whatever it is that you don't know. But if you have that belief that you can learn and you've done it, I think anything is learnable as long as somebody is there to teach. So one of the things that I try to tell children is, see, if you've already decided it's difficult, you never get started. You lost the battle because you're not even going to try. So you have to draw on whatever little success you've had in learning something and say, no, that was hard, but then when I practiced, I got better. So all I need to do is just stick with it, and I will be able to do. So I think that's a real differentiator, because if you want to be really successful, you've got to stay the course. You've got to just continue. So if I abandon teaching, saying I don't like it because they're giving me this kind of work to do, and and it was because I had the computer at home, I applied for GEMS education. I found, while I was browsing, I saw an ad saying GEMS education is looking for teachers, and on a whim, I put in my CV. For a year, I never heard from GEMS education.
Oh my God.
So I was like, okay, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe it didn't reach GEMS education. But then I heard that GEMS education responded to an address that I had put in. My husband being in the Navy, we shifted from one building to the other. The letter went to some other house, and they said, no, this gentleman's in the Navy, he's not here anymore, and didn't get delivered. But my telephone number was on the CV. So when Mr. Barki was coming to Mumbai, he asked, so they sorted out the CVs and they said, just give this person a call. So they called on the number that was given, and they connected and said, how come? I said, where are you calling from? Dubai. I thought someone's pulling a fast one on me. And I said, but I forgot that I'd put in that application. I'm calling from Dubai in response to. I said, I sent that last year. So I said, we are coming down to Taj, Mumbai. If you're interested, you can come for an interview. And even that was on a lark. I said, let's go and see whether I make the cut. Not with any intent of coming to Dubai, but let's see if these people are interested in hiring me, you know. So I just went and attended the interview, and Mr. Waki was like, I have a position as a head of primary or like a headmistress role. I'll give you a house, I'll give you a visa, I'll give you this. And for me, staying in Mumbai, that was you know, the most important thing I wanted was a house. So as I got this offer from Mr. Varki. The Cathedral and John Connon offered me as headmistress of middle school, but they weren't giving me a house. In Bombay, houses
not easy
to have. So they said you have to wait 1 year because the person who's occupying that house has to leave the house and it'll take a year. So you manage somehow for 1 year and then you can take. So between Cathedral and Dubai, I was like, I wanted Cathedral. It's a very renowned institution, well established, and I was head of middle school, and I was thinking about it. Then I realized my husband's going to be sailing, and I have these two kids, and I was worried they're 14, 15, they'd be studying. I'll have to look after them alone, and I didn't find it was very safe in Mumbai, you know, and staying alone in a rented apartment somewhere. I didn't want to take a chance. So I said, okay, how bad can Dubai be? I'll just give it a shot. If I don't like it, like I'll treat it as a naval tenure for 2-3 years. And by the time my kids should be done with 12th, we just go back after 12th. So I came here looking to stay maybe 2 or 3 years till my kids got through 12th. And I think it was basically the children on whom Dubai grew suddenly, and they didn't want to go back to Bombay, my own children. So once they graduated here, they said, we'll study here, we will study in the, college. And those days, the colleges were not, a good scene over here. There was hardly any colleges. But I think Middlesex University had just opened at that time. And they enrolled in Middlesex, I think. And then from there, they went to Edinburgh to do their post-graduation. And he said, eventually I stayed with GEMS, and that was the journey over here.
Wow. You've had a long journey. I was engrossed in the story. So I heard something interesting about you is that a couple of years ago when you were at the Amazing Teachers Award, you actually did a little bit of singing.
I think that was your dad forcing me to sing. I'm not a great singer. I never made claims to singing. I was what would I say? I was in a choir along with a lot of singers, but not a very. I wouldn't say I have a very strong singing voice, but I can hold a note. So I told your father, okay, I shall try, and I did sing a couple of lines, I think, at the.
So if I ask you to sing right now, would you?
I don't think I have a nice voice enough to, I'm not. I always I'm very critical because whatever I like to do, I want to do it well. I can sing. I'm not like my teachers used to call them non-singers. I can hold a note, but I haven't sung for a long while.
All right, that's okay. But I mean, I'll still believe that you sing pretty well. I'll still keep it in mind. So, oh my God. Okay, so you're a principal. You work with students. You've seen kids grow up and stuff like that. What were you like as a kid? What were you like as a teenager?
As a child, till around 10, 12, 13, I was very diligent, very focused. I wanted to do everything very well. I was driven by my grandfather, my father, everyone. I wanted to please them. So single-minded. I used to read a lot, and I think that helped me hugely between, say, grade 4 and some 10, 12 years. I was voracious in reading. I would just read anything I could lay my hands on. The bookstore guy used to chase me out because I used to stand quietly and read without buying the book. But there was one Bible Tract and Book Society on St. Mark's Road in Bangalore. He would see me. I would buy books, but he knew I loved books and he just let me read. So I thank that man because I stood and I read everything I wanted to read, but I'd buy one book and leave. My only intent was to go there and buy books. And those days, of course, you had libraries where you pay 25 paisa or 50 paisa and borrow books. So whether we went through Agatha Christie or we went through whatever. So whatever genre I liked, I would just go and I'd go through all of those books and I would read. I was such an avid reader that my mother would say, okay, Asha, the dhobi will come and he will give you all these books. And I'm saying, are you listening? Yes, I'm listening. You got to take in all this. The dhobi would come. He'd leave the clothes. I wouldn't count anything. I'd say, okay, take the money and go. And I would continue reading. And when she comes back, she'd be livid. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you paying attention? While they knew it was good, it was also bad because I wouldn't get my head out of a book. But I think that really has whetted my appetite to become a teacher of English. I don't think, I was very good in science and math, and till around grade 8, I was topping in every subject, in every single grade, and my dad would keep a book and keeps the marks of not only me, but the top 2-3 students. He had columns, and he'd say, how much did Sheila get? How much did Meera get? How much did Annie get? And he'd enter those marks. And he'd say, why didn't you top? And in our report card, you'd get 1 out of 25. Your rank would come in a column. So there was no getting away from it. In the end, you can't lie. But I think by the time I reached grade 8, I suddenly maybe burn out of earlier things, or that the complexity of the subject. Now, you can't top every subject, every single discipline. It's not possible. As a little child, maybe when I was in grade 4, I remember the very first prize day. I took all the prizes in that class. Some person called Dharma Veera, he was a chief minister or somebody, had come as a chief guest. And every single prize they read out, except for one, I think every single prize. So they used to give books as prizes. And I was 8, 9 years old, and I was carrying a lot of books. And I set that as a goal for myself, because I said, okay, in grade 4, I've taken all the prizes. Grade 5, I must take all the prizes. It was okay till 7, 8. But by the time, I think, the subjects began to vary. Math became algebra and arithmetic and geometry and whatever, and physics, chemistry. And then you can't crack everyone. You can't ace every single subject. And it became more and more difficult. So my father would be annoyed at the fact that, you can do it. Put in some more work. That's when the battle between dance and subjects became, a lot, because I couldn't give that kind of undivided attention to learning. And I think as a child, till 12, 13, I was very compliant, very wanting to please my teachers, wanting to please my parents. I was meeting with a lot of success academically and other things. So I was driven. But then there was, between 13 and say 17, 18, I was like, no, now I'm going to live my life, So you get into being a teenager and you began to be, you suddenly realize, you're being so nerdy, you don't have friends, nobody wants to talk to you. There's something like friends, there's a social life, because I was busy reading. I didn't have time to go out. And everyone was out playing or going out, I was busy reading. I wasn't interested in going anywhere. So I think then I stepped into that kind of a life. And I think that's where I didn't I did well
Mm.
in my science in my 11 and 12. But in Bangalore at that time, to get into medicine, you had to get some 95% or something like that was the cutoff point. I was, as it is, doing ICSE. I did make the cut for on a merit basis into St. John's College in Bangalore, which is the only college where I applied, thinking, okay, I'm going to study here. And then I said, no, I'll go. I applied in Madras in Vellore Medical College. Both these places, they didn't, you didn't qualify on the merit. But in Bangalore, there was something called, you are there, you're a domicile, you've stayed there for 15 years or 16 years, then you get a quota. But for that, you had to pay. My father was against it. So he said, I'm not paying anything. You're an intelligent girl. You should be able to get in without payment. So he suggested I do BSc and I try again. I said, no. I said, first and foremost, I don't like science as much as you think I like science. I love English. I love history. I love geography. So what are you going to do? I love painting. So I told him, send me to 𝐤𝐥𝐥 School of Arts. I want to become a painter. And then you're going to sit on the road and sell your paintings. Painting is for, hobby. You need to study for something. And I said, no, I like, I want to do arts. From there, we parted ways about my academic progress because he realized suddenly that I'm not going to become a doctor. So he said, okay, study. And my mom was most excited. She said, I can get her married. So it was like, it's either medicine or marriage. So anyway, I was studying for BA. But when I just finished, I enrolled for MSW. My mom didn't want me to do social work because I think somewhere in me, there is something to help the underprivileged. I still have that drive. And that's what took me to doing social work. But I was also very disillusioned while I was doing MSW because, there were these slums that I used to go to work in and work with slum dwellers. They were funded by these international organizations which would send money to, and you had to do case studies as part of your social work. So every time I went there and I had to talk to these women and find out, so I would say, what about your husband? No, he's a drunkard. He doesn't do anything. No, it wasn't that. There was a criteria given to these people that if your husband is not working, if he's not helping you in the house, then only you will get the funds from this Christian organization. So we were, in a sense, driving them to just sit down doing nothing, because if their husbands were drunkards, they were being financed by this, people. And then I saw some of the missionary things. They would get lovely toys and dresses for these children. They just make them hold it, take a picture, and then they take it back. And I said, what is this? I mean, like, first it was Christianity. For me, it was my religion. I'm saying, you're doing it's a wrong thing to do. Two, this money is not yours. It's coming from outside, from somebody who believes that they're helping an orphan or a child or a poor child. And you're just, pretending that they... So my ethics got in the way of my social work. And I was very disillusioned at that point, saying, how can people be like this? Now I know how people are, but that time, going into work like that, I thought I wanted to do good. I wanted to help people. And I thought, you go in with that intent, you go with a good mind, and I was idealistic. Like, this is black and white, there's no in between. And to see people who I looked up to in terms of the church groups or these organizations misusing the money, and the poor people learning a bad habit, that is, if I'm drunk, my family will get money. I was wondering, are we driving these people to these bad habits simply because we're giving them easy money? And they became so picky that when we used to go with stuff to give them, they would say, I don't want this soap, I want that soap, I don't want atta, I want, dals and whatever. They would pick and choose from what was being given to them as, whatever was collected. So they were really not needy. They were a spoiled bunch of people, which the organization was spoiling. And so the photographs came, and I would always, much later, whenever I should think, of donations reaching poor people, my earliest experiences with social work told me that you have to really monitor whether your funds really reach the people who need them. However above board these organizations looked, and I didn't work for one. This was one Christian organization. I worked for two other organizations. They were all the same. So when I had to go and work with the slum dwellers, I woke up to the fact that whatever I had learned, whatever value systems I was taught in school, I had to change them all when I came out into the real world. Like, it was not about telling the truth and not lying. There was such a gray area between that, where people justified their lies for what they considered the larger good. So, it shakes you up as a young, 20, 21-year-old, listening to, your school, your home has taught you very clearly that this is right and this is wrong. But that's not what's happening. And when I'm seeing religious institutions doing this, I would say they should know better. They should know better. But no. So it was some things that, when I looked at that, I realized that that's not. So by the time I finished my MSW, my mother had said, okay, get married. And again, that was another journey, just got married.
Wow. So something I noticed is that, a lot of, what, as I said, you're a UN accredited climate leader. And what is, I see that you promote climate literacy and you preach about it wherever you go. So what led you to that? What made you want to go, wherever I end up, I will continue talking about climate change?
Okay, I'll tell you, the first thing that it struck me was because I continued this philanthropic collecting money, giving it to underprivileged. Every time there is a kind of a disaster in any part of the world, it was like in Gaza or in Turkey, or there's an earthquake or something, our school would raise funds, bring in provisions, pack up everything and give it to Red Crescent or whatever. So as to encourage that children should learn to look after other people. Then there was a flood that came and hit Kerala, where it was unlike anything I had seen in my life, in the sense that Kerala has rains and the heavy rains, and you might find knee-deep water, whatever. But with dams breaking, with flooding of the airports and, everything, I realized that actually climate change is, it's people are treating it very lightly. And in my entire life, I have never heard my parents saying about floods in Kerala, the floods in any of the places that, I was beginning to see things like floods. And I realized that it is actually a fact. And, we started packing things and sending it as relief material. And then I realized that we must do more than just react to an emergency. We have to actually begin changing behaviors in children and in adults. The sad part is, even today, though sustainability is being pushed and a lot of people are talking about it, people are not willing to make those changes in their behaviors. They will still switch on the lights. They still want to go without, to cut back on consumption of meat, or consumption or flying to another country, or reducing electricity, water. It's a very, especially in a place like Dubai, it's prone to excess, wasting food. During Ramadan, the amount of food which is thrown, there are lots of things. While Dubai is a very modern city with lots of aspirations. What we actually do here is not helping the climate at all. And I thought, as a teacher, if I cannot teach my children what will prepare them for the future, then I'm failing them somewhere. I mean, as an educator, at least I should make my children aware this climate change is real, and there are real actions that you and your parents and our teachers and everyone can take to change our behaviors, which in turn will reduce the carbon footprint to some extent. Can we save the world? Can we prevent droughts and whatever? I really don't know. But I don't want to live to a time when I say that I could have altered some things, but I didn't. So once you know something and you've learned about it, I think it's necessary to make sure as many people are aware of it. I saw the COVID and I realized COVID is just a glimpse of what climate change can be, the aftermath. When COVID hit and so many people were dying, regardless of geographical boundaries, that's when everyone was panicking and wearing masks and willing to take vaccines and praying to God that they would be spared of, when there was no vaccine, there was absolute panic, staying within, everything was disrupted. When climate change happens in a way that either there'll be drought or lack of water or bad air or, unavailability of food, the people who don't have, they won't respect your geographical boundaries. They will come into your country and they will take what they have to survive. And that climate wars will come about. You won't be able to keep people out. Because if, let's say, one area is flooded, now let's say some part in Dubai is flooded, do you think those residents are going to just stay in their buildings? They're going to get out and try and come to safer places where they're drier, where they can get food. Similarly, if a part of India is, say, flooded, those people are going to move from Kerala into Tamil Nadu or into Karnataka or into some other place because they want to be safe and they want to be away from the impact of climate change. The people in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu are not going to appreciate these climate refugees in their taking away their jobs, taking away, encroaching. There might be violence as a result. So it's bound to happen when the magnitude of the problem is so huge and it's going to impact. And if there is a problem in India, it doesn't mean to say Dubai is safe. Maybe people from India will come to Dubai because Dubai is safer. So you may not be immediately affected by the climate change problem per se, but you're going to get impacted by climate refugees, the lack of water or the lack of food items or the lack of a safe place to live will result in a lot of shifts in population. And I think if we think it's not going to happen, it's just foolishness. The pace at which we are progressing towards this is so rapid that when it happens and when nature sort of revolts, it won't knock at the door and ask, are you rich, are you poor, are you Christian, Muslim? The water will come into every house. If there's a flooding, if there is so it's rich people and poor people. During that Kerala floods, I saw very wealthy neighborhoods submerged, their property gone, their cars underwater, everyone in this leveled by the fact that no one had access to food, everyone was in the same boat, and everyone had to help each other get out of the nonsense. So as an educator, for me especially, once that I felt that way, I felt the need to learn about it. So I did the UNCC courses, made sure that my teachers learned about it. My students do the courses now. Around 5,000 teachers in GEMS have completed the courses. We are actually embedding sustainability and climate literacy into the curriculum. It should be, just as you study English, math and science, you have to learn about the climate and its impact and what you can do to change, to play your part. At least equip yourself. You should know that if we all contribute to this, what is going to be a result of that, we will all have to be part of, so that's something that.
So I wanted to ask you about the fact that, like, as you said, your teachers are also equipped and they've learned all of these new skills. So something I saw that you place a lot of belief in those around you, like people who, your colleagues, your staff members, your students, the amount of belief you place in them and you support them in different ways. What led you to did you have anyone in your life who believed in you that way? Do you think that translated into the
I
love
think
you have for others?
everybody needs a champion, and why children learn or people learn is only because of the belief somebody has in them. And it can be anybody, it doesn't have to be a teacher, it can be a grandparent, it can be your husband or wife, it can be a parent, it can be a friend. But if you trust somebody and you believe in them, and sometimes they don't believe in themselves, but you can say, no, you can do it, you can do it. And you must give them the opportunity, and they are able to do it. What I have learned is how children learn is they will make mistakes. So I allow teachers to make mistakes. I allow everybody to make mistakes, because if they're making mistakes, they're doing something. And when they're doing something, they're learning. And learning is about making mistakes and correcting those mistakes. So the ones you place that trust in them, I think it places them on a different level. They say, she expects us to do this and she believes we can do it, so we have to come good. And then they really try, whether it is children, whether it is adults. All they need is somebody saying, I know you can do it. I don't know if they can do it, but I always tell them, I know you can do it, I know you will do it. And they somehow reach into the recesses of their soul, I think, and pull out that thing and say, here, I've done it. And once they have been able to do one small thing, then I don't have to be there. I then actually step further back and just allow them to run. And they do it brilliantly. It's just a question of trust. Parents don't trust their children with the laptop or devices. And I tell them, the more you try to prevent people from doing something, they'll seek that out and do that alone. But if you teach them, this is an instrument and here, this is the pitfall, this can happen, and be open to it, then they use their discretion. Will they err? They might go into a couple of sites they're not supposed to. They might do a few things that they're not supposed to, but eventually they know what is right and it'll come back. It's a question of building that trust. And the trust can be built only when A, you give opportunity, and B, you allow mistakes. And I think once that happens, they know, okay, this person doesn't judge me. I can err, she'll still support me, and we can learn together. And once they reach a particular level of, it's like riding a bike. You'll fall. At some point, you have to take away the trainer wheels. And when you're letting go, they're going to fall. But once they fall and you're still there, okay, get back on the bike, you can still ride, you're still giving them the bike. They learn that now I have the skill, I know how to, now I will maneuver. But once they're really up and running, we're there. They take the cycle and go on their own paths, which is what I want them children to do. Get on your own cycles and go your own paths, because your paths are all different, though you're all in the same school. Every teacher's path is different, every student's path. So when YallaSchools awards or some awards give somebody a recognition and somebody doesn't get it, I tell them that recognition was not on your path. When it is on your path, you will get what you have to get. Keep walking the path, because the recognitions are just like milestones. You reach this milestone, it has come in your way. You halt at the milestone and you say, okay, I've reached here. Good for me, But you're not going to stay there. You're going to keep moving along your path. And on your path, there may be fewer milestones. There may be frequent milestones. There may be none for a very long, discernible time. But that's the path you've chosen. And you need to keep moving. Whether you like it or not, life will move you down that path. How you choose to embrace that path and, accept it is the way. So I cannot compare my success with your success, because we're not on the same road. living the same time, maybe in the same geographic zone, maybe in the same organization, but my path is not your path. So if I try to emulate you and say, I have to be as successful as you, and if I measure my success about how you have progressed along your path, I can't compare because my path and the people on my path are different. And so I think if everybody trusts that they've chosen the right path, they've been given the skills, then you just let them loose and you let them go on their paths and they'll be successful.
Wow. So you just made an analogy about riding a bike.
Yeah.
Do you know how to ride a bike?
I rode a bike, but very late. I think I must have been around 13 or 14. I never liked two-wheelers. I was never successful with a scooter, though my husband tried to teach me. I was always comfortable, stable in a car or a four-wheeler. But I can ride a cycle, and I used to cycle to my college. That was part of the reason why I was taught how to cycle, because my dad said, okay, now you left school, you've got to cycle from school to home. And I went for a couple of years. When my sister joined college, she couldn't cycle. So my dad said, okay, now, you come by bus or you take an auto and both of you come back together. So I learned it for a purpose and I used it for a couple of years. But, I always feel that you have to wean away everybody, whether it's children, adults, from support. And the reason why you don't wean them away is you're afraid they will fall, they will hurt themselves, they will do something wrong. But any kind of learning will entail mistakes, And if you understand that, then only their learning begins, because otherwise they're not learning. You're doing it for them. You're making them cross the road. Indian parents hovering over their children, not allowing them. There's no financial freedom. There's no independence. They don't know how to take a metro and go from point A to B. They live here, but if they have to go get a haircut, their dad has to take them to a barber. So can they do it? Of course they can do it. What will happen at best is that they may get lost for a little while. They may not find the place. They may go to the wrong barber. They may get an awful haircut. But if you look at it as learning and say, let them do it, because that's their learning, next time they will realize, okay, this is not. I remember when I was young, I was asked to go and give a money order. Okay, you have to go to the bank and fill out some nonsense on some paper and give the bank some money and then transfer it to somebody. My uncle sent me. I must have been 15 years old. I die of embarrassment every time I think about it. I went to the bank. I got the thing. I was too proud to ask anybody. I wrote everything. I didn't know what to do with it. I took the money and I put the money and that paper in an envelope and I put it into the pillar box. I don't know why I did it. I thought everything went via the pillar box. I went home. So he seated there. He said, what did you do? And he's only a few years older to me, my uncle. So I said, I did this. And he said, and then the money, where did you? He started laughing. And then he told my dad one thing which I never forget. He said, see, just sending them to the best schools in Bangalore does not ensure that they are educated. Education happens when, with that learning, they're able to use it in the real world. And your daughter has just demonstrated to you that she's the topper in the class. She's this ways. What prevented her? I said a common person would have said, okay, I don't know. And it's okay for me not to know. So I'll say, I have to send a money order. I haven't done this before. How do I do this? And somebody in the bank would have instructed her. But no, she decides she knows to fill a form. She's filled a form. And then she decides to do whatever she knows. And let me tell you, every time I think of it, and I literally cringe when I think I put it into the pillar box and I came away. But it was such solid learning in the sense that you realize you've got to let people make those mistakes. Did I make that mistake again? Never. What did I learn? If I don't know, I ask. And I say, I don't know how to do this. I've not done this before. So even when I go to the gym now and I don't know how to operate a machine, I'm taken back to those days and I'll say, look, I haven't used this machine. Can you tell me how this works? And normally people are very kind. Oh, you haven't used this? Nobody's mocking me. You know, at 15, I was thinking, if I go and I say, I don't know what to do with this money order, somebody'd laugh at me. So I didn't ask. Okay. And I did all rubbish and everyone else was laughing at me forever. And it's a memory that won't go away. But it serves as a purpose that you have to give people opportunities to make mistakes, trust them. And then, you know, once they start doing so well, today I don't run that school. My staff run the school. And I'm not at all, I'm not as, invested in things that happen there, because I can walk in to any event, it'll run like clockwork. If I go in for anything, their standards are even higher than mine. And they're doing so well that, you know, sometimes I think I'm redundant in certain ways. So it gives me a lot of time to invest in things like sustainability, or now that the school is growing, to focus on grade 10 for students and things like that. If my staff had not developed that competence, I would be still struggling. So sometimes when you trust and you teach, your life becomes so much easier when other people gain competence. But many people don't like to develop staff. They feel threatened. If my vice principal becomes so smart, then everyone will think, okay, she should take over as principal, Asha should leave, you know. But if you operate from that mindset, you are making things more difficult for yourself. If you actually believe, I can train anybody, I'll build them up to this level, and then they're going to really exceed even my expectations, life becomes easier. So, you know, it's about trusting children and people at all ages, and for them to know that even if you make a mistake, it's okay. You'll be supported to learn through those mistakes. And when you are, reaching a sense of accomplishment, you'll be allowed to function on your own.
Wow, I like the story. It's really funny. All right, so that brings us towards our end of our questions. Last part, I have a really fun game.
Okay.
It's a little rapid fire game. So I'd like you to just prepare yourself and just whatever first thought or story that comes to mind. You have to be honest here,
Yes,
okay?
yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What is a secret about you that nobody knows? Something that you did as a child that to this day you haven't told anyone.
I took a dictionary from my house because I wanted to please my teacher.
Okay.
It was an old dictionary which belonged to my grandfather. I took out all the books in my aluminium box and I put in this dictionary. I took it to her. I gave it to her. She never questioned. She took the dictionary. And I don't know if my father ever found out that the dictionary was missing, but I so wanted to please her because she was the prettiest teacher I had in my school. And I was sort of in awe of her and I wanted her to be really happy. And I had nothing to give her but this dictionary. I thought she'd be very happy because she was my teacher of English. So I actually carried this huge, gigantic dictionary and gave it to her.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to the dictionary. I don't know where Miss Robinson is today, whether she's alive or not. But I just wanted to do something to really, really keep her happy.
Wow.
So I did a wrong thing in order to make someone else happy.
Was it like a lot of the times kids have like a little teacher crush, right? Sometimes. Was it something like that?
It was just that I used to sit in the front bench and she was so pretty. And she was a young teacher and she was so kind to me and I wanted to do something for her. And my father never ever bothered with the dictionary, and I said, it's serving no purpose in my house. I might as well give it to somebody, but I should have told my dad that I was taking the dictionary and giving it. Not that anyone missed it in my home, but I felt I had done something terribly wrong.
Yeah.
But I also did something terribly right.
Yeah. So in a way, I think you did really good. So you'll be forgiven for that. I mean, now your parents know, so they'll probably forgive you for that. Okay, what's an embarrassing moment you've had that you just cannot get out of your head? Other than the bank story, what's like another embarrassing probably moment that you had?
Which I can't get out of my head.
A lot of things.
I am really racking my brains. This was one which was really embarrassing, which I told you, which I remember, which I think would stay with me. Yeah, it's when I went to, I had to go to a college, you know, they used to have these festivals, music festivals, and I wanted to go to somewhere in Madras, and my dad was like, no. Then he agreed. I said, I'm going with friends, and all, we booked our tickets and went to this festival, and we were participating. And he told me, you have to come back on this date. But my friends all decided they were going to hang around in that, you know, they found some boyfriends and they wanted to continue there. And I knew my dad would kill me because even permission to go there was not there. And I didn't even know that, I mean, again, lack of understanding that you should take a ticket to get into a train. I just got into the train.
Oh no.
And then the TT came. And I was hiding outside the toilet. I was young, I must have been 16. And he must have thought I was with somebody. And every time he came, I went into the washroom and I stood there hoping he'd go away. And he did. I traveled ticketless to Bangalore. I slept on the, somebody had left a newspaper. I opened the newspaper and I slept outside that horrible toilet with the stench in those things. But again, it is again because, you know, I just saw the train, this is Island Express or whatever, is going to Bangalore. I just jumped into the train.
You actually didn't know you needed a ticket to get in.
I never bought a ticket.
Oh no. Wow, okay. So, wow, that's okay. I will agree with your uncle at this time. So, if your life was a movie, what would the movie be called?
What would the movie be called? It'd be called Phoenix.
Like rising from the ashes type of thing?
Yeah, because I think there have been many times I thought it's a dead end. And then I've reconstructed and become something else. And there have been times, I mean, whether it was my own vision or somebody else's vision, life didn't play out exactly the way I would have thought it would. But then I was able to find something in me to, you know, find another path and then continue to do what I wanted to do. So good things have happened, but it may not be how I had etched it out when I was 15 or 16.
So what's your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure? I can't say there was any guilty pleasure. I just do everything I want to do. You know, I don't hold myself, I can't do this or can't do that. So, and I do a lot of things. It's just, I love traveling. If you just let me be, I would just travel the world. I don't think I would want to be, I would want to learn by just being everywhere.
Wow. So I have a last question for you. Would you ever start your own school?
Would I start my own school? If I did start my own school, I would want it to be completely for the benefit of humanity. I wouldn't want, I don't want to make money on it. I think I still have that philanthropic part where I want to give back to people who really can't afford good quality education. I try to support that, but I think if I reach a point where I want to do something and I have nothing to do, I do it for free. I don't like, in fact, even when sustainability, one of my pet peeves is people want to make money of it. People want to charge for courses. This is something that everybody needs to know about. You shouldn't be making money of something that where our futures depend on it. You know, you should be able to give. So you're not going to be able to take anything and everything with you. So at least learn to give back to people who really need it and deserve it and would value what you are sharing.
So that brings us to the end of our episode. Before we conclude it, is there any words of wisdom or anything you want to say? You can look into the camera and just say whatever you want.
What I want to say is that, believe in yourself. Don't worry about success. Success is very, very individualistic and depends on the path that you've chosen. And who's to say you're not successful but for yourself? If you've learned something and you move from point A to B, you are successful. So don't chase another person's opinion of success. Just do what you love and do it well and enjoy your life and be as hungry for life as I am at 64.
Wow. Wow. So that brings us to the end of our episode. Miss Asha, thank you so much for being here. Great stories. I hope you relived some of your old memories today.
Yeah, terrible. Some of the most embarrassing memories. But yes, once in a while it's good to reflect on your stupidity and your naivety and
your youth.
And it's always a learning point that, you learn so much in your schools, but you don't, until you really start using what you've learned, you really don't understand what it's for, whether it's math, English, or a skill set. You have to have opportunity to use them, So it's always, mistakes will humble you, but if you can learn from them, they're your best teachers.
So that was that. Another life lesson for all of you. Thank you all so much for watching this episode. And if you liked it, thumbs up, obviously, and subscribe and like and share, all the exciting stuff, and comment, because so many amazing stories. Like, I learned so much. I learned what not to do in the back. So thank you all so much for watching once again. And thank you for being here. And I will see all of you in the next episode. Bye-bye.